hope everybody's doing okay. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning. My first cup of tea. I am definitely not early riser this morning. I slept in a little bit. So my name is Red Moon Eagle, and you are watching Daily Devotions. It is Tuesday, November 12th, 2024, and occasionally Astra the cat will come in and join us, but we're gonna rock on here. Grab a cup of tea. I think I want to start with breath this morning, so just take a minute and close your eyes if you need to. I want you to breathe in from your diaphragm, from your lower belly, in through the nose. Hold at the top, and breathe out. In and out through your nose. One more. Hold at the top, and release. One more. Hold at the top, and release. Ah, feels good. Feels good to have a couple good breaths in the morning. So, we're going to revisit this card. 32, Wings, Blood, and Bone. I'm just going to read from the book to start. I'm leaving off on where I left off yesterday. It is possible to experience unity of the heart whilst also honoring one's biological lineage. However, if honoring morphs into biological over-identification at the expense of one's universal spiritual nature, there is an increased likelihood of attachment to the power or story associated with one's particular culture. The soul can then become constrained by culturally constructed identity rather than empowering to work through particular legacies of one's biological inheritance to evolve to benefit humanity. Discernment is required to differentiate between honoring and identifying, so that freedom to take one's unique soul journey towards complete awakening is protected. Freedom to follow one's genuine soul calling is the lifeblood of the shamanic soul. For the soul to awaken to its fullness and calling, such freedom must be secured above all else. This oracle speaks of a time when you may need to honor the collective soul group of your ancestries, but take care to avoid becoming so caught up in consciousness of the clan that you derail your spiritual awakening. There are times when the only way to break a negative pattern, ancestral or otherwise, is to seek a spiritual resource from beyond it, integrating a completely different approach to overcoming energetic stasis. However, flying fish doesn't speak of complete abandonment of one's origin. Instead, indicates the temporary flight to otherwise distinct realms to gain spiritual inspiration, a sense of deep relevance, personal meaning, and practical resourcefulness gained from a different perspective, and to bring the benefit of that back into one's world. Such flight may be needed numerous times along your soul path. The oracle speaks of yet authentic changes in your path, spiritually inspired and facilitated through leaps of faith. There is something of value within the soul that shall shift, evolve, and be sustained through these changes. What lifts you spiritually will teach you how to do more than adapt or cope. You will evolve to thrive. You are in the midst of one of these unexpected diversions or sense of leap of faith will soon be necessary in your life. Have faith that your soul understands how and when to accomplish this for its greatest progress. You may not realize it consciously, but you have an enormous inner energy that will instinctively and spontaneously propel you to new levels or worlds at the right moment. Trust the spiritual intelligence within and don't hold yourself back. Okay, so I think where I want to go with this today is So it talks first about biological lineage and not letting that be what rules the world, basically. But instead, it says having culturally constructed identity is great, except, according to this, you can become constrained by that. And I know exactly what that means. And what I'm trying to convey is that when looking at this card in prayer or spiritual context, let's look at it from a perspective of the freedoms that you gain from multiple insights in your world, okay? So multiple perspectives. When I read something that says, I have actually a book in mind. I don't know if it's still sitting here. Yes. Where'd it go? I can't find it. Oh, it must be upstairs. Okay, so if I read a book on, say, Mayan secret codes, right? Like something like that. I'm going to want to read a book by an archaeologist that talks about how they discovered how numbers work in the Mayan calendar. Or I might want to look at what archaeologists are saying about the Mayan books that they have translated in museums. And then I might want to read a book about, or written by, somebody who has Mayan ancestry and is writing about their culture. So I'm not going to read just one book on one perspective, because that one perspective only gives me a piece of a whole. It's not a complete picture. If you think of like how 3D works, right? Like 3D gives you a 3D perspective. You know that this is a flat plane, but you know also that it has edges, right? And in looking at biological, spiritual, ancestral honoring, being able to discern or differentiate between honoring and identifying, and being able to make your own unique soul's journey decisions, being able to discern and have multiple spiritual perspectives of any one thing. And one thing I love about this card is that it says here, Flying Fish doesn't speak of completely abandoning your origin or maybe your perspective. Instead, it leads you on a temporary flight into otherwise indistinct or distinct realms to gain spiritual inspiration, a sense of deep relevance, personal meaning, practical resourcefulness, gained from many perspectives. And adding to this, the line that said, unexpected yet authentic changes in your path, spiritually inspired and facilitated through leaps of faith. And that being in the midst of this diversion, right? Like this inner and outer journey. And I know I've talked about it for a couple days, but you know, the stuff that's going on in our world, I'm going to put that over here on a shelf, because one of the things that I've always been very passionate about is being able to look at things from multiple perspectives, being able to apply critical thinking, discernment, and being as fair and equitable as possible in understanding different people's perspectives. And when you're on your own spiritual journey and you're trying to figure out, like, what are the things that you believe, what are the things that you don't believe, what are the things that you can honor, what are the things you can't honor. And I learned this years and years ago as a teenager, and y'all will laugh at me, but I went to the Baptist church, I went to the Methodist church, I went to the Pentecostal church, I went to the Catholic church, I went to the Mormon church, I went to the Episcopalian church. I went to all of them. I even went to a couple revivals. Yay. And I lived in the South, so the South was the perfect place to explore the multiple versions of Christianity in the South, and they're all very different. And the more I saw, the more I realized that not only from a religion perspective, right, like an organized religion, but also from a spiritual perspective, that most people that are involved in communities like this are just good people. Good people want all the same things, okay? And they all want to belong. They all want to feel like they're connected to community, that they're connected to their spiritual self. Everyone wants to have that connection, right? Everybody wants to have these connections, these spiritual insights. You know, everyone wants to have their connection as a spiritual entity in a human meat suit. They all want that to be validated. Everybody wants that validation. And what has happened in the eons of time, right? And moving into this, no, don't do that, Astra. She's so funny. She can feel that I'm talking to somebody, and she wants to get attention with that. You're a beautiful girl. So there is this need and want and desire in these communities that is all, I believe, very genuine. Now, I will also acknowledge that in the eons of time that have happened, that we have these established organizations that have come along that in many ways the structures of the organizations are, you know, possibly corrupt or easily infiltrated by people with machinations of grandeur. You're going to have that anywhere that you go. You can see it in a small microcosm in a family or a McDonald's work environment, or you can see it in big churches, big corporations, and government, right? So one of the things that when I'm looking at this card and I'm looking at this cultural or spiritual identity that people hold on to, I acknowledge that, and you can look at it statistically too, that in our country, more and more people are disassociating with organized religion in the big square box of organized religion, because there is more availability to have that community and have that spiritual connection without all the rules and without all the shaming and without all of the fear-mongering, without a lot of the things that unfortunately make organized religion very toxic, right? So the awakening of kind of what's happened in the world recently is another pivot point for a lot of people. And that pivot point is also spiritually a perspective of looking at where is the foundational culture, how do you get multiple perspectives, and how do you still be friends with your friends and stay safe and not contribute to mass hysteria, and at the same time hold on to your spiritual selfness, right? Without getting lost in one lane, without getting locked in to one lane of a perspective. So I've said for years, I'm extraordinarily spiritual. I could probably identify as pagan or Wiccan. I could also identify as Native American spirituality. I could identify as spiritual generalist. We all have whatever it is that makes us feel safe, okay? And the things that I have learned through my exploration is that, and I know that I'll get pushback on this because I get pushback from my own family, which is I truly believe that most people want similar things. Most people are good people. Now, how that gets pivoted, right, and how that gets translated and twisted and warped into hurting other people and crawling over other people to get what they want, or becoming extreme isolationists, or, and I mean that in a spiritual sense. I know people who are extremely isolationist in their beliefs and very literal in a one lane is the only lane. The only lane is the right lane. And all we have to do is go sit in a Walmart. It's like my favorite social experiment. All you have to go is sit in a Walmart. You will see every kind of person in your community in the space of a shift, right? Like you could just sit on a bench and watch people walk by. You will get a microcosm, a snapshot of your community. Because I promise you, the wealthy billionaires that swear they've never been to Walmart will walk through Walmart. Everybody goes to Walmart. It's a amazing social experiment that has happened in our world that I find fascinating. And even if they don't buy anything, or they buy a cheap pair of sunglasses, that microcosm, that snapshot, could be applied to spirituality, could be applied to belief, could be applied to anything you want to apply it to, because as many varieties of that snapshot you see is also spiritually a perspective that you can learn from. I'm always fascinated to meet new people. New people bring me amazing snapshots of their life, new experiences, new microcosms that open my world and give me so much insight. Now, does that mean that I'm going to welcome everybody into my home? No, that's not safe. Does that mean that I'm not going to protect myself and make sure that I'm safe in learning other perspectives? 100%. Does that mean that somebody coming into my life saying, this is what I think is 100% right, and this is the lane I live in, and everybody else is wrong, and I'm going to hurt the people that are in your lane? Yeah, I'm not going to let that happen either, as much as I can. Prevent something like that. So I think there is a valuable notation in today's daily devotional with Wings, Blood, and Bone. And I think that notation is very much back to the line here that you have enormous inner energy that will instinctively and spontaneously propel you into new levels and worlds at the right moment if you can trust your spiritual intelligence within. And when you're trusting that spiritual intuition from within, the other caveat is to do the things that you need to do to protect yourself and still be open to multiple perspectives and the discernment that many of these things have a commonality. And that commonality is we are all living in a human experience. And when somebody comes at me with a fervent, I believe a thing, and this is the thing I believe, it's okay. I also listen to key things, like, are they saying, I don't understand? Or are they saying, you don't understand? When there is a you, there is very little opening to have a discourse. So I'll say, you look terrible in green, right? Like that would be, you look terrible in green, and I think you should wear blue. I think you are wrong. Okay, I'm just using generalities here. And that sounds very different than, I think green is an interesting color to choose. I am curious why you chose that color. I have always looked at green to be the color of leaves and trees and growing things. It doesn't look like that's why you're wearing green. Can you explain it to me? That's a totally different conversation, because there's an opportunity to go from accusatory and I am right and I think that you're wrong to I have an opinion about it and I'm curious and I don't understand why you chose to do that thing, and can you explain it to me? And can we discourse? Can we open a dialogue about the color green? Our inner spiritual self is the spiritual entity that's living in the human experience, right? And this is what most people in the spiritual community call your higher self, and I use that word loosely. So if your higher self can't get through the trauma and the one lane, this is 100% the only way to do something, trauma response or learned response, then it's very hard for your spiritual self to be listened to, your entity within, who you are as a spiritual entity living in this meat suit experience. So to listen to that inner voice, take some breaths, listen to how people around you talk to each other about other people, and listen to how the people that you respect talk to other people. Do they open doors of dialogue, or do they come from a place of circle the wagons and this is the only way that there is? There is a lot of fear in the world right now, and I belong to quite a few communities that are spinning. They're spinning in fear right now, and that's okay. I can't be mad about that. If I were not where I am in my life right now, I probably would be in that spin. And so I can be very compassionate about the circling the wagons and hunkering down. And I can definitely be compassionate about the fear and the terror and the anxiety that's happening in the world. I'm very compassionate to it. I'm not there, and I know I'm not there. And so it means that I have to be even more careful and even more compassionate about offering multiple perspectives, multiple directions from which the flying fish can come from, many cultural, spiritual, and energetic perspectives, because I truly, truly believe that most people think that they're doing the right thing, that they are doing what they believe is right. And I do think that most people, when they make decisions, they are following a premise of what they've been taught, which is take care of me and then take care of others. And I've said that too, and that is a true statement. You do take care of you before you take care of others, right? The airplane analogy, you put a mask on yourself so you can help somebody else, 100% true. Where that becomes toxic is in an airplane situation. You put the mask on yourself and then you start only looking at people that, I'll use myself as an example, I will only put masks on people that are female in the rest of the plane. So if I have two seatmates and one is male and one is female, or one is a child that's male and one that's a child that's female, and I'm only going to put the mask on the girl child. There are cultures that do that. There are cultures that are so toxic that they only look at themselves and like themselves to help each other. And this is the challenge that I put out into the world, the spiritual daily devotional mindset that I would love for you to embrace today, which is if the person next to you is anything other than like you, they're human. And that humanness means they need a mask too. And we spend a lot of time picking certain people out of the plane to help. And I think most people, when they think they're doing the right thing, they come from that taught perspective. But our spiritual entity self on the inside wars with that from the very earliest of our lives. And if you watch children, they help each other until they're taught not to help each other. And so it's really important today, out in your world, this is your challenge. Think of the airplane analogy. You've helped yourself, you've gotten yourself your mask on, you can breathe your oxygen. Who's next to you? Who needs a little bit of that oxygen? And that I'm not going to use perspectives that are what I would consider toxic positivity. I'm not using analogies like something that would be in the Christian Bible. Because when it comes to spirituality and the things that are happening out in the world today, we need something that is separate from that. And a common thing that we all have is we all live in a human body and we all need oxygen, which is why I like that analogy. And too often we're looking at, well, my oxygen mask is pink, so I'm only going to use pink oxygen masks to help other women, right? Like it's a terrible isolation. It's a terrible thing to do to other people. Making the helping of other people a condition of the color of your oxygen mask or the gender or whether you're wearing a blue tie or a black tie, or, you know, you could come up with a lot of analogies in this particular example that are completely applicable to the world at large. And take a lot of deep breaths. Listen to how people talk. Are they sitting in the chair next to you on the airplane and they've got an extra oxygen mask? And are they only looking for those like them? Okay, that's what they're experiencing. But if you're awake, if you're aware that you're surrounded by people on the plane that are looking for only people like themselves on the plane to share that an extra oxygen mask with, then ask the questions. Ask them if they recognize what's happening, because they're looking to share that oxygen with someone, because their soul, their spirit, we want to have that connection. Our intuition, our spiritual entity within wants to be a part. We're here to all do a thing. And ask the question, but ask the question with curiosity, not with judgment. Not like, ugh, why are you only looking for people with pink masks? No, that's not helpful. Understand that you can see what's happening on the airplane, and that's okay. Not everybody can, and they want to. We all want that. No matter how you couch it, no matter what religion, no matter what dogma, no matter what political view, I don't care. We all want that. So gain a different perspective. Look at it. What does the pink mask represent to that person? Can they look outside of their window? I'm very blessed to belong to part of a community who can see the lenses of multiple cultural identities. And I'm very blessed to have a lot of people that can see those things in their life. But I'm also blessed with people who struggle with that. And I find when they're ready, some of these people are some of the most joyful new experiencers to a whole plethora of things they didn't realize were out in the world. So I love you all very much, and thank you for joining me with Daily Devotional, and we will see you again in prayer. Blessed be.